All right, guys, welcome back to the Fit Disciples podcast. If you are fasting in this season, how should you go about it? And what is the best way to do it? All right, we're going to try to cover that today really quickly. If you're new here, my name is Adam. And as you know, in the world, there are two types of people. Those are those who subscribe and those who don't subscribe, those who share and don't share, right? So if you're new here and you find any of the things we're talking about here a blessing to you, please like, subscribe if you're on YouTube, share if you're on a podcast platform, whichever one. Just get involved, be engaged. It really helps us to move forward in our pursuit to help more Christians just finish this race strong with their health intact and with their bodies, minds, everything just still serving the Lord for the long haul. All right. So if you're like me, you've been serving the Lord for some time. Maybe you're new, maybe you're not. But every January is usually when around the world, Christians of different denominations, different backgrounds tend to fast to consecrate themselves to the Lord in a way and kind of quiet down the flesh to some extent, or master the flesh in some extent, in order to hear God's voice more clearly for the year, right? It's where people seek God for specific things, maybe blessings for the year, whatever it is. And it doesn't matter what tradition you come from, if you're Catholic, you're Baptist, if you're Eastern Orthodox, doesn't matter, right? Because if we're serving Jesus, we're serving Jesus. But I get the question often, like, how do you fast? And what's the best way to do this? And what kind of fast is best? So I'm going to do my best to just jump through these really quickly. I don't want to take a lot of time because you could belabor this point. There's books about fasting. There's plenty of secular books about fasting, which, tend to look more into the healing side of things, but we're not going to look at that today. We're looking at devotion to the Lord. How do I show my devotion? How do I consecrate my flesh? How do I make a vow to the Lord that I'm doing this and fulfill it? And what's the best way to go about that? All right. So, what I find is this time of year, people will typically do about a 21-day fast. Some people do longer, some people do shorter, whatever it is. The first thing we have to realize when you step into a fast is what is the reason you're fasting? What is the motivation? Okay. If you're like me and you're part of a church network or group of churches that tend to do 21 days of prayer and fasting every January, the reason is because we're trying to seek God for the year. We need His blessings on our life. We want to hear His voice. Maybe He's going to give us some new direction. Basically, we're just giving God the first part of the year so that we can say, hey, do whatever you want, God. Like, we're here, just speak to us, right? And people go about this different ways. Some people are on different faith, maybe different trajectories of faith, or maybe they're new, maybe they're been doing this a long time. So here's a couple things that I like to think about is when you're fasting, I find that fasting food is the most effective way to really challenge your flesh. Okay. Some people will be like fasting social media, fasting this or that. And that might be what you feel like the Lord's called you to do. And that's fine. For me, I believe fasting is more about appetite than it is about anything else. I think it's more about taking the flesh and making it submit to what I want to do. Okay. So, 21 days of prayer and fasting. How should you go about it? It depends on your goals and if the Lord has spoken to you directly. If the Lord has spoken to you directly, like, hey, I want you to do this type of fast, then you need to do that and not deviate to the best of your ability from that. Um, so there's no, I'm not going to give you any information around that, right? Because if you're doing what God asked you to do, then you do what He asked you to do. And you do not try not to deviate. Make sure that if you do deviate, for some reason you slip up, or you're just in an environment where nothing happens, or something happens and you end up eating something, but whatever. You just have grace because God has grace. God's not waiting up there with a stick to smack you on top of the head because you messed up. Remember, this is a relationship you have with the Lord, and it's not like if you were saying, hey, to your wife, hey, we're going to go for walks every day, and you had to miss one day. It's not like now she's mad at you and you had to you're getting divorced. It's not it's not how that works, okay? So just remember, if God's asking you to do a specific fast, do that. All right. Now, if you are choosing a specific fast and you are health conscious, you are the kind of person who likes to train, you're the kind of person who wants to get the most out of it, the most out of the fast without maybe jeopardizing some of your results from having really worked on your consistency in training and lifting weights and really taking care of yourself. Here are my suggestions. All right. Um, One, just for 3 weeks, if you are the kind of person who lifts weights, does exercise, and really takes care of their health, but also wants to fast, you need to keep the goal the goal. If the goal is to fast during these 3 weeks, don't try to make gains in the gym as well. One needs to go in front of the other. Okay. So you keep the fast the main point and you dial back your training in other areas. So maybe your intensity goes down. Maybe you're just focusing on your consistency. Maybe you're focusing on just showing up and doing your best. Whatever it is, keep the main thing the main thing. If the fast is what you're focusing on, that's what you're focusing on. Too many people try to do the fast, but then also make gains in the gym. And it's like, which one are you focusing on here? Are you focusing on what God wants you to do or what you want to hear from God? Or are you focusing on you couldn't let go of your plans for 3 weeks and now it's competing? So you have a division. You have two visions going on. All right. So keep the main thing the main thing. And then, depending on the type of fast you choose, will depend on how you supplement for that. If you're the kind of person who maybe will do one meal a day, or maybe skip one meal a day, whatever it is, you still need to focus on getting your protein in around those workout windows or meal timings. Okay. So if you're going to do one meal a day, which a lot of people do, it's just called OMAD, um, make sure that it has a large punch of protein in it, some veggies with some fiber and some good fats. Okay, what this is going to do is it's going to basically help you to not lose as much muscle mass because you're not getting enough amino acids, enough calories just in general. So you want to mitigate the amount of muscle loss as much as you can. All right. If you're going to the gym as well as eating one meal a day, that will help because you're still sending a signal that your body needs to maintain muscle mass. All right. If maybe you're skipping one meal and you're going to do 2 meals a day, like which many people do, well, then you want to sandwich your workouts between your meals and still make sure that your meals are protein heavy, right? Around that. So that way you're still getting plenty of calories, but again, still take the intensity down on your workouts because remember, the goal is the fast. The goal is not to kind of participate in the fast, but still make gains. That's not the goal. The goal is the fast. The goal is to hear from God, okay? So you have to choose a sustainable way for you to approach this that is a sacrifice for you, but still sustainable enough for you, right? So you don't want to white knuckle it for 3 weeks, all right? If you're going to do something like a Daniel fast, which in my opinion is probably, if you're choosing a fast, is one of the worst ones to choose, especially if you've been focused on your muscle mass and if you're an older individual. Now, there are ways around it, okay? You need to realize that if you're not eating any animal proteins, you have to get your protein in from somewhere, okay? So this is the third thing we're focusing on, okay? First, we're focusing on keeping the main thing, okay? The fast is the goal for these however many weeks, not your workouts, not anything else, okay? That is the focus. So focus on that. The workouts will be there later. 2, when we do pick a diet to fast, remember, I personally don't think like fasting social media or, not drinking for the month, like not drinking alcohol, that's not a fast, in my opinion. Those things are detrimental to begin with. Okay. So Fasting something that's already detrimental or like not doing something that's already detrimental to you is called adulting. Okay. So that's not a fast, in my opinion. A fast is something that you require, but I withhold. Okay. So I require food. I require a certain amount of food every day to stay strong and healthy. But I'm going to go below that to make my flesh submit to what I want to do so that I want to get closer to God, right? So I'm putting myself at a deficit in order to quiet this down so that I can turn up, amplify God's voice in my life, okay? So, all right. So you choose the fast. If you're going to do like one meal a day, if you're going to do a water fast, anything like that, you need to make sure that if you're doing a water fast only for 3 weeks, just realize you're going to lose a ton of muscle mass. You're going to lose a bunch of weight in general, but just be aware that you're going to lose a bunch of muscle mass, and that's your choice. Okay, there's no way to mitigate that if you're doing like a liquid only fast. If you're doing, you could do a liquid only fast and have like liquid protein. That could work, but you have to make sure it's still a sacrifice and you're doing what God's asked you to do. The third thing is when you're choosing a fast, like let's say a Daniel fast, you need to think of a few things. How do I get my protein in, and how do I honor the fast itself? Okay, I've just worked with a couple people on this at a recent consultation. All right, the Daniel fast, in my opinion, is um, just a vegan diet. Basically, you're doing a vegan diet for 3 weeks, roughly. You still need to get your protein in if you can. The best sources of this for that fall within the parameters of the diet are going to be some type of soy isolate protein powder, um, rice milk protein powder, or rice milk protein. I don't like pea protein because it tends to have more heavy metals. The last I looked, it might be better now, but if you're focusing on eating mostly just vegetable matter throughout the day, um, throwing in some soy, some hemp protein, rice protein powders, having a shake in there from time to time. The big thing is to focus on trying to have a little bit extra protein at every meal, just a plant-based protein. Okay. Because what I find is that particular diet can be very detrimental, specifically to like older ladies who muscle mass is premium. Like muscle mass is the stuff of life, and it takes a lot of work to grow it. And then just deciding out of nowhere to go 3 weeks with no protein intake, basically, is very detrimental and hard to recover from, depending on your age and your activity level. So it could be very detrimental. So we need to be careful here. All right. The goal is no matter what you choose, you need to try to find a way to get your protein in a moderate way to minimize muscle loss throughout this time. Okay. The other thing I would recommend is not doing, if you're going to do like a Daniel fast or something like that, still be very mindful of gorging yourself on fruits and grains and things like that. Still very high in high glycemic, still going to have a huge insulin release and sugar spike. So we just need to be aware of that. Those things are not dangerous in and of themselves, but depending on where you are metabolically, it could cause some issues. All right. So we still need to be intelligent about this. Don't be like, well, I'm fasting for the Lord and I'm doing a Daniel fast, so I'm going to eat as much fruit. Basically, I'm just going to eat fruit and bread and rice at most of my meals. No, you need a lot of more fiber. You need to make sure you're chewing your vegetables. Like you're getting a lot of fibrous vegetables in there, and you need to make sure that you're getting some form of protein source. Okay, and then when the fast is over, you go back to your animal-based protein sources. One of the things I've noticed with a fast is people will do, like, let's say a Daniel fast or some type of low meat fast, and they're like, oh my God, I feel so much better. So I'm going to eat like this forever now. You don't feel necessarily better because you stopped eating meat, you feel better because you probably stopped eating junk, right? I don't know anybody who eats a really clean diet, like just not a lot of junk food and not a lot of like processed meats from like fast food joints or whatever. I don't know anybody who eats like that and then stops eating like that and doesn't feel better. Of course you're going to feel better. But if like you take the meat away from me, I don't eat a lot of junk. You take the meat away from me, I'm just tired. Now I'm just tired because I just can't get enough calories from everything else and I just don't get enough protein. So just be aware you're going to feel a little bit different at times, and it's not because you cut meat out, it's because you cut trash out, okay? The human body can the human body and the human organism has thrived on tons of diets, tons of variations of diets, from carnivore all the way to almost vegetarian, right? Which is like down in like Bolivia and stuff like that. The one thing it has in common is that it's just not processed. It just doesn't have a bunch of junk in it. So if it's not doesn't have a lot of junk in it, it has very minimal amounts of junk, the human body can almost thrive on it, depending on the person and activity levels. Okay? So let's just be aware of that. Now, when you're coming off of a fast and you need to break a fast, the best way to reintroduce foods is through very easily digested things: soups, broths, uh, light juices, things that are super easy to digest for you. Like, I knew a guy who did a long fast and then just couldn't wait and just ate fried chicken. Like that was the first thing he ate. He went to the bathroom on himself in his car, right? Like literally, it just ran directly through him. He hadn't had any fats or grease for like 3 weeks, and then he just went and just like dumped dumped grease on himself, right? Of course, your intestines are like, what? So be smart. Broths, soups, really easy. Juices, not a ton of like orange juice, like just smashing orange juice, but just really lightly getting your stomach moving again in that direction, especially if you've been doing no food. If you've been doing more of a Daniel fast, you need to reintroduce meats that are leaner first and then slowly increase the level of fat. So go with chicken or like maybe white fish when you're reintroducing things. Don't go straight to brisket. Don't go straight to chuck roast, right? Not because those things are bad, but because you went from eating not a lot of fat to now your intestines needs to transition back to absorbing fat. So it takes it a little time. So if you don't adhere to that, you will kind of grease your intestines really quickly and it just won't absorb as fast and you'll end up in the bathroom. Okay? Or if you're going no food for 3 weeks and then you reintroduce things that are really difficult to digest, like maybe corn, broccoli, celery, like things that are super fibrous, that could cause an issue too, right? Because you've had nothing in your stomach this whole time, and now all of a sudden you're throwing in a bunch of indigestible fiber. Okay? The best way, especially if you've been no food, is broths and soups. Best way. And slow cooked, like even if you do eat the vegetable, like if you go 3 weeks, no food, your best bet is going to be to make some type of slow cooked soup, um, really soft meats, broth, and everything, just slow cooked down, like really soft, and eat just a little bit and see how you feel. And then if a few hours later, you feel great, eat some more. Perfect. If you're going like you're just skipping one meal or skipping 2 meals a day, maybe you're going no food for just a couple of days, that transition is going to be a lot easier. Like I can go from eating to not eating for 3 days and come back to eating exactly like I was. It's not going to make a big deal because it hasn't been so long that my body has transitioned. Okay. So if you are doing like a Daniel fast, come back real easy, really lean meats, maybe slow cooked meats, things like that. Be easy on your stomach. All right. But the biggest thing to focus on when you're fasting, first, keep the fast the main thing. If you're going to do more of an extreme fast, like let's say water only, liquids only, no food, whatever, for 3 weeks, I would say go for walks. Try to get in the sun as much as you can. Don't try to exert yourself too much because you're just going to increase the rate of catabolism, the catabolic action of your body is going to, in those 3 weeks, your body is going to need amino acids, calcium, and all this other stuff. And it's going to take it from your muscle and your bone. That's what it's going to do. That's what happens. That's why people get so skinny when they just don't eat, okay? So you need to be careful. Don't increase that activity by trying to be super active during this whole time, okay? Just be kind to your body. If you're skipping meals, try to sandwich your workouts around your meals, right? Like try to sandwich it between meals. Or if you're doing one meal a day, try to drink something before your workout that might give you a little energy. Coffee with a little bit of cream in it, maybe a little bit of juice, something like that. Something that gives you a little bit of energy, a little pop. And then have one meal, your big meal, focusing on protein. Every meal is focused on protein. Okay, protein and veg. Okay. If you're doing a Daniel fast, make sure that you are getting some form of protein in with your meals in the form of plant-based proteins, because that would adhere to the diet, not because that is optimal, because that would adhere to the diet standards. So that would be using soy, hemp protein, rice proteins. You can make shakes with those things. And then when the diet is over, reintroducing meats through lean, slow cooked versions of those really slowly. Broth is really good too. Bone broth is really good too. So all those things will reintroduce your stomach to more fats, things like that. And that way you just won't disrupt your stomach too bad, okay? And then if you are not fasting at all, you probably should, because the Lord would love to get to know you better. All right. So hopefully this is helpful. The big thing is don't look at the fast as a way to lose weight. Don't look at the fast as a way to, you know, hit your weight loss goals for the year. It's not that. Keep it the main thing about Jesus. Keep it about your relationship with God and what you need to hear from him and what he's asking of you. Okay, so it's more about obedience than anything. If you're going to work out during these times, use this podcast and some of its advice to keep you from doing too much or hurting yourself. All right, so just be aware. Fasting is about fasting. Working out is about working out. If you're going to mix the two, make sure you have a priority and make sure that you keep the main thing the main thing. All right. If you have questions, would love to hear from you. Please just hit me up. You can email me. You can DM me on Instagram or on YouTube. Would love to hear from you. But fast, hear from Jesus, let God bless your life, and make sure that you do whatever he's asking you to do, because obedience at the end of the day is the only thing that really matters. All right. God bless.